Everyone I know is now talking about Switch 2s and they're all getting them after, hating on the price increase a while ago back when it was first being launched. And I get it. I mean, it's a good console. There's a lot of fun games on there. Donkey Kong Bonanza I've heard is really good. The new Mario Kart I heard is decent. But instead of spending $500 on a Switch 2, I decided to spend $300 on a Steam Deck LCD and then spend another $200 to upgrade it. And now I can say without a doubt in 2025, having a Steam Deck is absolutely worth it. There are some caveats. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but if you're like me and you get it for the reasons that I got it, you'll absolutely be so in love with the Steam Deck. And I think this is genuinely one of my favorite consoles of all time. I haven't put this thing down ever since I bought it. I've been playing it every single night. I've been playing it like whenever I can at work on break. When I'm sitting in the car before class, sometimes I get there really early because the traffic isn't that bad, and I'll pull out my Steam Deck and I'll play a game. And it's honestly been probably one of my favorite experiences with a handheld console in literally years. When I first got the Nintendo Switch, I really did enjoy that console a lot. And the one thing about that was that it had the ability to hook up to the TV and all that. And I remember I used to play stuff like Breath of the Wild, but usually on the TV. Like I never really brought it places unless I was going on vacation or something. And it was a good console, but I think the Steam Deck, there's something different about the way it's designed that's really like amplified the ability to carry it and to go lay in bed and play a game or to go out with it in public. Like it's definitely got like a different feel than the Switch did when I initially got it. I feel like the Switch felt more like a home console, like a family, living room. Usually it was sitting in the dock on the TV, when I was playing a game. But with the Steam Deck, since I can't really hook it up to a dock, I mean, I can now since I did buy a dock, but we'll get into that later. Since I can't really hook it up to the TV whenever I want all the time, and that's not really what I want to do with it anyway. Like, I don't want to put it on the TV. I don't want to play a game on the Steam Deck on my monitor or on my TV. I want to use it in my hands in bed. And I think that this is an aspect of the Steam Deck that really does make it different from something like the Switch, especially when it comes to something like the Switch 2. And I kind of want to further back this up by bringing up a completely different handheld that I've been getting back into recently. It's more of a more recent version of the Switch, came out before the OLED, but I found my Nintendo Switch Lite, which is the version of the original Switch, which is purely handheld. And I have literally fallen in love with this device as well. And I think it's for the same reason that I fell in love with the Steam Deck. With the Switch, it felt more like I'm holding these clunky controllers, that connect to the ends of the Switch, and they can come off whenever I want, right? Blah, blah, blah. But I felt more like inclined to put that console on the TV. I don't know what it was, but I always felt that way. And I remember a while ago, my parents bought Switch Lites for me and my siblings, and I never touched the Switch Lite. I would always play on the Switch on the TV in my living room. But recently, since I started playing on the Steam Deck, I decided to pull out the Switch Lite. I reset it and I downloaded some games, and I was like, maybe this is a different experience now that I've come to know handheld consoles as they should be known as. Like, not being able to hook it up to a device, but like it begs you to be played sitting down on a couch or laying in bed. Like, there is no other option. So I put out the Switch Lite, and it's crazy, but I've had the same effect as the Steam Deck with the Switch Lite. The games run just as well as they do on the original Switch. The battery life is solid, and I'm able to play some of the Nintendo exclusives that I wasn't able to play on my Steam Deck, for obvious reasons, like Smash Bros, Luigi's Mansion, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, these are fun games that I can literally play whenever I want, and I've started bringing the Switch Lite out in public with me. I've started using it during my break times or before school. And I'll still bring my Steam Deck too, but the Switch is more for like if I want to chill and I just want to relax. I can play a game like Animal Crossing where I don't have to do any like crazy gaming or anything like that. I feel like with the Steam Deck, I'm playing more games like Hades 2 or, Yakuza, but I haven't really been able to play like a lot of super chill games because I feel like that's more for my Switch Lite. Like I feel like it's more dedicated for those types of titles. But I am getting a little off track with the Switch Lite. I did want to bring it up because I wanted to kind of show what I meant by I think the Switch and the Switch 2 are more like at-home consoles less than they are handheld consoles. But with the Steam Deck and the Switch Lite, I have found myself like I can only play these handheld for the most part. I mean, if I need to play the Steam Deck on a TV, I need to get an external controller. I need to do all this setup stuff. I need to set the settings in game to match the resolution of the TV. It's just a hassle and I don't want to deal with it. And with the Switch, it felt like very uncomfortable to hold in my hand. I remember that being a big issue for me back in the day when I used to play it a lot. It would always be, way too heavy or something, or my hands would cramp up after a while. But with the Switch Lite, I haven't really had that issue. It's been slight. It's definitely been way less than it used to be on the original Switch. I feel like with the Switch Lite, it's much smaller and it just kind of fits my hands naturally like you would a phone. So I have found it more enjoyable to be playing while I'm sitting down. And this isn't a diss on the Switch or the Switch 2. I do find those consoles very entertaining. I've played on a Switch 2. I've played on the original Switch, obviously. My brother bought a Switch 2 and I have played on his, and it's pretty cool. I do like the console. But I think my point I'm trying to make with these is that these two consoles that I'm talking about in this video are more dedicated for handheld gaming. And I really do want to get into the Steam Deck specifically because this has been probably my favorite console I've ever gotten in my entire life. I am a big PC gamer. I have my own rig. I built it. I play a lot of PC games, so naturally my Steam library is very large. And there are a lot of indie, smaller titles that I have never touched on my Steam Deck. For example, Hollow Knight is probably the biggest one. I remember I bought this game back when I was hearing about the hype. People were like, play Hollow Knight, play Hollow Knight. And you know what? I never played it. I hadn't played it until this year and not until I got the Steam Deck. And another example is Yakuza. I don't know why, but I never played the Yakuza on my PC when I had it, Yakuza 0 specifically. But for some reason, I found it very enjoyable on the Steam Deck, and the fact that I can play it like when I'm on break or when I'm going somewhere. I can enjoy the story. I can play the gameplay. It's great. It's fun to play handheld. It's fun to play away from my desk, from being able to sit on my chair and stuff like that. And other games that I would include in this is games like Hades 2. I didn't really play that much on PC. I played that more on my Steam Deck. Anything that's more indie or laid back, I've only been playing on my Steam Deck, and I think that's kind of the point of having a Steam Deck, is to play the games that you aren't going to touch on your PC. On my PC right now, I'm playing games like Arc Raiders. I have a PlayStation to play Ghost of Yotei. I've been playing Clair Obscur on my PC, but those games, you can't really run those games, especially Ghost of Yotei. It's an exclusive, obviously, but I'm talking about like Arc Raiders and Clair Obscur. You can't really run them on a Steam Deck. You can. I've definitely played them both. You'll probably see when you look at my home screen, both of those games are there. I have played Arc Raiders on it. It does run well, but the battery life is not incredible when you're playing these higher, like heavy, graphical, intense games. So it is less of an experience because the battery isn't going to die on you a lot sooner. If you're playing something like Hollow Knight, the battery does last a lot longer. So that is a big thing about the Steam Deck, is that the battery life isn't the best for these bigger games, but when you're playing smaller indie games, it does work pretty well, and you can really get immersed when you're holding it in your hands, playing it while you're laying down or while you're on the couch or something like that. So that has been a great experience for me, and I have actually been able to get into these titles, and I have actually put a lot of hours into these games when I probably never thought I would actually go ahead and play them. Another thing about the Steam Deck, and it relates to kind of why I spent $500 on an LCD model, is because of the upgrades. And the upgrades are kind of insane. You can pretty much do anything you want with this thing. I've seen people switch out the buttons, the sticks, all that stuff, but the only thing I've done is I put a 2TB SSD inside of my Steam Deck, so I am able to download a lot of games, and I have a lot of storage now, and I think that's pretty cool, the ability to do that. I also have downloaded a lot of different emulators and games on those emulators, so you'll see I have like Metal Gear Solid and some games that I cannot say out loud on this video that are listed all in my library. And I was able to do it with a plugin. It's called EmuDeck. You can just go on the website, you can download it, set it all up. It does pretty much everything for you, and it stores all of your games into one big library. That's also a game inside of Steam that you can open, so you can just run any game from the emulator inside of this application. And a couple other things I've done is I put some plugins on my Steam Deck, so you'll notice that my home and my screen is not exactly how it will look out of the box. I have added some tweaks to make it look nicer. And there's some other technical stuff that I put in here, like the ability to have my AirPods controlled on the Steam Deck. I have a plugin that lets me turn on the noise cancellation on or off. There's other stuff like a timer that lets me know when my break is done, because sometimes I'll get distracted and I'll forget like when I have to go back to work. And then I have dimmer deck, which helps me to dim my Steam Deck basically to zero brightness, which is useful for when I'm downloading games overnight and I don't want the screen to like, burn or just be bright next to me all night, something like that. And Power Tools is probably one of my favorite ones. It lets you customize like how much, threads your CPU is using, GPU, wattage, all that stuff. So it is very useful to have plugins on the Steam Deck, and it is also very technical. I don't think a lot of people are going to fully enjoy that if they're not very computer oriented people, which I totally understand, which is why something like the Switch 2 would make more sense. It's a lot easier to use. You have the ease of use if you know what you're doing and you enjoy doing this type of stuff, but if you don't, I totally understand. Like, I think the Steam Deck, or the Switch 2, sorry, would actually be a better option. So that's probably one of the biggest caveats about the Steam Deck, is it is a more technical device. There's a lot of stuff you have to do to set it up if you want to get it working the way I have it. You can obviously use it out of the box. It's still just as good. But if you want to have these nice quality of life tweaks, it's a little bit of a workaround. You have to go into the desktop mode and do a lot of downloading and, move files around. It's not too difficult, but if you don't enjoy doing that, I totally get it. Another thing with the Steam Deck that I personally had an issue with was setting it up in the first place. A lot of people that I saw were saying that this was the easiest device to set up, but that actually wasn't the case for me. When I first got this thing, day one, it wouldn't turn on all the way. It would load, and then eventually it started to go into the Steam OS, where it would ask for an update, and then the update wouldn't work. And I kept trying to reset it, and Reddit keeps saying that, like, if you just keep resetting it, it'll eventually work, but it didn't work for me. So what I ended up doing was I had to reinstall the Steam OS and the whole thing, and I had to redo the BIOS and all that stuff, which wasn't difficult, but it was definitely not enjoyable. Like, I didn't want to have to do that, but I had to. And I actually had to do that twice when I upgraded my SSD, but I knew beforehand that I would have to do that, so I was prepared. But the first time when I first got it, I was freaking out, like, maybe this thing's bricked out of the box, like, not great. But that wasn't the case. I was able to fix it, and it works perfectly fine now. But I will say, if that is something you want to avoid, I would say probably don't go for something like a Steam Deck or, an ROG Ally or something that's going to possibly fail, and you have to do some technical workaround to fix it. Because at the end of the day, it is a console, but it's a PC. It's a computer. It's not, your Switch where if you brick it, it's game over. Like, there's usually a way to fix it. You can open this thing up easily and get inside if you need to do something with it, which I would say is a pro, but also it could be a con if that's not the type of stuff you want to do. And if you think that having a console would be better because they're more reliable when it comes to the hardware stuff, like, I totally understand. But for me personally, and for people like me that are watching this video that are like, that sounds amazing, I want to do that, I want to have a Steam Deck, I want to play a game like Silk Song on my Steam Deck, like, go ahead. I would say go ahead and buy it. I think it's totally worth it. I think at $400, which is the regular cost of the LCD, I would have thought twice about it. I probably wouldn't have got it, but I saw it on sale for $300, and that's when I got it. The sale's over now, but I would say if you do see it on sale for $300, this is a must buy. I literally didn't even think twice when I saw the $300 sale. That was insane. I'm recording this after I recorded the original video, but a couple of my friends bought used Steam Decks. I actually have two friends that have bought used OLED Steam Decks. One of them bought one for $350. It was an OLED version, and it works perfectly fine out of the box. There was just some cosmetic damage around the joystick, which I think honestly is a great deal if you don't care about the minor, damage that it had. And then my other friend got like almost perfectly brand new OLED Steam Deck for around $400-$450. And they both upgraded their Steam Decks, and they've bought like cases and stuff for it and skins. So I would say in that situation, if you see something on eBay, I know it's hard to trust it sometimes, but I would recommend looking into it, especially if they let you look at the console before you buy, which is usually what would happen. Just look at it and make sure it's okay, it runs well. And if it works, great. I think you should go for it. If you can find an OLED for around like the $450 to $400 price, like, that is incredible. I don't know how my friend got it for lower, but whatever. I have been enjoying the hell out of this thing. This is probably literally the best thing I've ever bought. I think it's my favorite purchase in recent memory. And overall, I found myself using it more than any of the other devices. I was using my PlayStation to play Ghost of Yotei, and I finished it, and now I have not touched my PlayStation since. And I've been using my PC to play Arc Raiders, but that's only during, like, the evenings or late afternoon when I'm bored and I have nothing else to do and I just want to sit down on my desk and play a game, like I'll play Arc Raiders. But once it gets to like the late hours of night and I feel like laying back, you know, I want to relax in bed, I'll just load up the Steam Deck and I'll turn on Hollow Knight. I've been playing that, or I'll play some Yakuza 0, you know, and it's just like very enjoyable to sit down and just play a game. You know, you're in bed, you're cozy, you're able to play Hollow Knight. It's very calming. I have fallen asleep literally playing Hollow Knight before, and that was great because I woke up the next day. I forgot to mention this, but the Steam Deck, when you turn it off, when you go into sleep mode, it just pauses the game, so it's like the PS5 or like the Xbox or the Switch or something. So if you turn it off, you can turn it back on, and it'll load into the game, that the place we were just at. And I love that feature because it's very easy to get back into where I was. And I also got to mention that I did buy a dock. I bought a third-party one because the main one was like $70, and I already spent so much money on this thing that I just decided to get a $30 dock. And I will say it's probably not the best dock you could get, but it isn't bad. It's been treating me well. I don't like the aesthetic of it that much, so I am probably going to swap to a different deck in the future, or dock, sorry. I got the JSOX one. It's fine. No huge complaints. It's just I would rather have a nicer one that looks better. But it does work, and I have been able to hook it up to my monitor, which I thought I was going to like really enjoy doing that, but honestly I have not really done that much since with it. So the only thing I've done with the dock now is I'll use my keyboard and mouse if I'm going into the, you know, Windows mode, or sorry, the desktop mode. And I will load it up with the keyboard and mouse connected to the dock, so that way it's easier to navigate, which is definitely like worth it. I think getting a dock is worth it. I feel like I'm going to use this thing when I go on my next vacation. I'm probably going to put this thing on like the hotel room TV or something. Like I see myself doing that with the Xbox controller I have. So I have actually been really enjoying the Steam Deck and the Switch Lite, surprisingly. I have been enjoying both of these. I think they're very good complements because I can't really play my Switch games on the Steam Deck unless I do a bunch of like workaround stuff that I don't really want to bother with. So I've been able to use my Switch Lite instead, and it's been just as good. I haven't really had any complaints about this thing either. Just the minor things like, you know, the only 30 FPS, and the battery life isn't amazing on the Switch Lite either, but it's still good. It's solid. But yeah, overall, that's what I think about the Switch Lite and the Steam Deck. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead, like, subscribe, and I'll see you.